Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, I am showing you the Pokemon video game team that came second at this weekend's World Championships. It was piloted by Sam Pendelis to a brilliant second place finish, losing a very good game in the final to the team that we profiled just a couple of days ago. And as the profile of that team is my most popular video game video to date, I suppose we'd better have a look at the second place team as well. And it really is a bit of a setup team. A lot of these Pokemon have these very powerful moves, and if you can just find a turn to get these off and get them rolling, your team essentially becomes unstoppable. Things like Xurkitree's Tail Glow, for instance, which is a brilliant setup move that raises the special attack by 3 stages. Or Garchomp's Sword Dance that raises its attack by 2 stages. There's a bunch of them, we'll go through them as we go through. It didn't mean the team, of course, couldn't win without these setup attacks, but clearly this was a bit of a theme running throughout Sam's team. So, we might as well start with the Xurkitree we mentioned before, a very powerful Pokemon with a huge special attack. He ran it with Papa Berry, not the usual item we see on Xurkitree. It raised the HP by 50% when it dropped to 25%, really just kept it around a little bit longer. When you're using these setup attacks, you often will take a hit or two. This allows you to recover your HP when you've got that special attack boost. The ability, as with all of these Ultra Beasts, is Beast Boost, which raises your highest stat after taking a KO, which clearly for Xurkitree is going to be special attack, and if you can get Tail Glow going and a couple of Beast Boosts, you really essentially are unstoppable. And Run Timid to mean it's a little bit faster. Now, Xurkitree ran the Tail Glow as mentioned earlier. If you can get a Tail Glow with Xurkitree in the early game, it's almost game over at that stage in a lot of matchups. It really is good. It also ran Dazzling Gleam as a powerful fairy-type move that hit all the opposing Pokemon. And the lightning-type attack of choice was Thunderbolt. Thing about Thunderbolt, of course, we saw in the final Alolan Marowak and its Lightning Rod ability, which directs all lightning-type attacks to it, and it's immune. Togedemaru also saw a bit of play this weekend with that same ability. Not having something like Discharge to hit all the Pokemon could have been a slight issue, as it was in the final. And of course, Protect, giving vulnerability for a turn. Another one of his Pokemon that had a really good setup attack was the aforementioned Garchomp with Sword Dance that raises the attack by 2 stages. It was a Groundium Z Garchomp, which meant it had access to that really powerful Tectonic Rage attack. It had Rough Skin as the ability, as most of these Garchomp do, which means that if your opponent makes contact, they lose 1/8 of their HP. And it was an Adamant Garchomp which put its attack up and its special attack down, meaning it was not the fastest Garchomp out there. But when you're running a Garchomp with Sword Dance, specially to raise the attack up as high as you can go, you really are focused on hitting hard rather than hitting first. Although Garchomp is a naturally quite fast Pokemon. In terms of attacking moves, it was a fairly standard Garchomp. It had Rock Slide, which was really good as a rock type, with a 30% chance of flinch, although only 90% accuracy. And it had Earthquake as well, although do remember that Earthquake will hit your own Pokemon if you're not careful. And then, of course, Protect on there as well. Another Pokemon that we saw Sam using, and Sam had a couple of games streamed, and his turn 1 play was pretty much always chuck out Alolan Ninetales and use Aurora Veil. It reduces damage from all attacks by 33% for 5 turns, but it can only be used in Hail. Well, the held item of choice here for Alolan Ninetales was Light Clay. That means Aurora Veil lasts for 8 turns rather than 5. And the ability here, like with all Alolan Ninetales, was Snow Warning, which brings in the Hail, which was pretty handy, to be perfectly honest. Otherwise, you couldn't use Aurora Veil. It's a very fast Pokemon, so if another weather setter like Gigalith came along, then it would actually kick up a sandstorm and override the hail, being slower. But other than that, it's just really good at giving your Pokemon that survivability. Aurora Veil allows your Pokemon to last a little bit longer, and then of course your Xurkitree and your Garchomp come in, and then they can use their setup attacks to really get going. Now, Alolan Ninetales was timid, which meant it was a little bit faster, of course wanting to get that Aurora Veil up nice and early, and it had a single attacking move that did damage, that being Icy Wind. Not the most powerful, not the most accurate, but it lowered the target's speed, always lowered speed, automatic lowering of speed, and that means that you could overspeed your opponents, get in another attack or two with these powerfully built up Pokemon in the late game. It also carried Disable to prevent your opponent using a previously used move. Come across a Pokemon that's got only one really good attacking move, use Disable, it is gone. And then Roar, that just forces the target Pokemon to go away. Really handy against stuff like Trick Room setters, because this is a moderately fast team here. You don't really want to be dealing with Trick Room, where the speeds are reversed and the fastest go last and the slowest go first. So if you see a Pokemon like Porygon 2 where you're worried about the Trick Room coming out, roar it away. Or something like a Snorlax that's going to come out and try and use a Belly Drum to maximize its attack stat. You just roar it away, and you don't have to deal with it. And then of course there was Mandibuzz. Now Mandibuzz really here is trying to make sure that your team is the fastest one out there. So Psychic Seed is eaten in Psychic Terrain, more on that in a moment, and this will boost your special defense. It also carried Overcoat as the ability, protecting it from hail, sand, and any of these powders like Sleep Powder. This was really important, of course, because otherwise your own Alolan Ninetales would be dealing chip damage to it with hail. And Mandibuzz was calm, meaning the special defense went up. This is clearly just a bulky Mandibuzz, boosting the special defense with Psychic Seed and also by having it with a calm nature. Now here it had the move Tailwind. Tailwind was really important. It just increases the speed of your whole team by 2 stages for 1 turn. So you get that Tailwind up with Mandibuzz and you're pretty much going to be outspeeding your opponent. And again, if you're rocking with your really hard-hitting Xurkitree, your really hard-hitting Garchomp, you need to be having that Tailwind up against certain teams. Not always. Sometimes you'll outspeed them anyway, but sometimes you do. It also carried Foul Play. This was the only damaging attack. It's a dark type attack and it does higher damage if the target has a higher attack. It also carried Roost, which just restored up to 50% of its HP, essentially just tanking a little bit. You've already boosted the special defense with both Psychic Seed and the nature, so you just sit there tanking a little bit using Roost, frustrating your opponent. And then of course Taunt, which means a target can only use attacking moves for 3 turns. This was another answer to things like Snorlax's Belly Drum and Trick Room. Anything your opponent tried to do that wasn't an attacking move, you could stop with Taunt. Although of course you had to be careful, because your Pokemon like Mandibuzz, like Xurkitree, like Garchomp, like Ninetales would all be, shall we say, worried about a Pokemon coming in and using Taunt on them. And then rounding out the team, we've got Tapu Lele, brings in that Psychic Terrain with Psychic Surge, really useful for getting Mandibuzz to eat the Psychic Seed, but it also blocks priority moves, like for instance Fake Out. Fake Out is carried by a bunch of Pokemon like Hariyama and Smeargle for instance, and it automatically flinches. That is an issue when you're trying to get these setup attacks off, so if you're worried about your opponent using something like Fake Out, you can bring in Tapu Lele to make sure they don't get to use it. And it carried a Wiki Berry, another one of these pinch berries like Xurkitree was carrying, with a modest nature, meaning that the special attack went up. You combine that with the 50% boost in psychic moves that Tapu Lele gets in that psychic terrain, you've got a fairly hard-hitting Tapu Lele. And it carried Psyshock, which really just is a powerful psychic move. Moonblast, which is a powerful fairy move, although it also had a 30% chance to lower their special attack, which is always handy, especially when you've got Mandibuzz sitting out there with a really high special defense. And of course, Mandibuzz and Tapu Lele are already a good pairing with the Psychic Seed, Psychic Terrain combination. So just lowering your opponent's special attack while boosting Mandibuzz's special defense means special attackers might have a hard time taking down Mandibuzz. It also carried Calm Mind to raise both special attack and special defense by one stage, and Protect because, you know, protect. And the final Pokemon on the team here, Arcanine. Arcanine really, pretty much every team carried an Intimidate user. We saw Crocodile on Ryota's team, we see Arcanine here, and Arcanine has been the most played Pokemon pretty much all season. Intimidate lowers the attack stat by one stage of all opposing Pokemon. It carries one of these pinch berries like Tapu Lele and Xurkitree, and it is an adamant one to do a little bit more damage. It carries Flare Blitz as a really powerful fire move. Bulldoze. Now, Bulldoze is a decent ground move, but what's more important, arguably, here is that it always reduces the target's speed. Now, we've already seen that Alolan Ninetales here is carrying that Icy Wind to lower speed, so you've got multiple options in this team to lower your opponent's speed, put them in an awkward position where you are outspeeding them. Carries Protect because, you know, protect. And Helping Hand. Helping Hand, you sacrifice your own attack on Arcanine to give your opponent a 50% attack boost. This just fits the theme of this team, ladies and gentlemen. You just allow your other Pokemon to do a huge amount of damage to take those crucial KOs when you need it. And ladies and gentlemen, if Sam's team gets going here, it is almost impossible to beat. Now, we saw in the final, Ryota brought his Alolan Marowak with Brick Break, which broke the Aurora Veil on that Alolan Ninetales. And we saw he brought Marowak with the Lightning Rod that really got rid of Thunderbolt on Xurkitree, which was an issue. But if you don't have the answers here, and you just see a tail-glowing Xurkitree and a swords-dancing Garchomp and a tail-winding Mandibuzz, you are going to get rolled in a couple of turns if this team gets going like it should do. Such a good team. It got all the way to second, and I thought, you know what? I like doing VGC team profiles. Let's get on it. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, there is a comment section, so do let me know if you like these videos, if you've got suggestions for VGC videos in the future. Remember, if you're a TCG fan, cool. I'm going to be doing daily TCG videos. If you're a VGC fan, brilliant. I'm going to be doing a couple a week at least for the foreseeable future. But what would be awesome, if we could all be Pokemon fans and just watch all these videos, that would make me delighted. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. That's where the live action happens. If you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.